Okay, guys, this is the most complex day. I'm breaking down the beginnings of philosophical thought based off of your readings of Descartes. Okay. If you get any questions, this is the time to be certain to send me your questions. Post them in the discussion board that I set up for the class. Okay. So let me share the screen. I'm going to be going a little bit slower than normal, and I'll be comparing some notes I have on the side sometimes just to make sure I don't mix up some elements here. Okay. So under Thursday, I have 2 PDFs. And while I am thinking about it, I am going to change the name of the first one. So it now reads Dualism versus Monism. And then you'll notice the second one says Free Will versus Determinism versus Fatalism. Okay. So these are main components of philosophical thought that have started way back with the ancient world. Okay. So starting with dualism versus monism. In this PDF, it's a simple chart, but it's a little dense. Let's use that word. It's dense. Okay. So if you notice on the left-hand side, I have information that says Cartesian duality. Now, Cartesian is referring to Descartes. Okay. So it's the cart, that's Descartes. Okay. So this is a principle that he set up in his writing. Now, already I'm checking my notes. Right. So when you think of Cartesian duality, or just simply duality, you're looking at the universe, at the whole construct of reality, okay, as divided up between two principles, two main components. It's going to be either matter and mind. You can use the word substance rather than matter. So substance and mind, or body and soul, or body and mind, or again, someone who's strictly religious based in their life, it'd be heaven and hell. Okay, so these four are just the tip of the iceberg, but they're for a way of looking at the construct of the world around us. So now the way this works, you don't necessarily have to believe in God to believe in duality. Okay, so religion, you've got philosophy and you got religion, two separate components. Religion is based on faith. Faith tells you not to question, just accept. They're divine mysteries, and you don't question the divine mysteries. Whereas with philosophy, it's all about asking questions. Okay, that's the main point of philosophy. So before we get off on the wrong foot, I am a man of faith. I am not an atheist, but there will be times I may say something that will come across as, I hope, at most agnostic, which means I am waiting to see God in order to believe in God. Okay. And I may say something that comes across sounding more scientific than religious. But again, I am a man of faith, and I'm not trying to question your belief system. I'm just breaking down this whole discipline of philosophy. Okay. So again, back to Cartesian. These are basically the components of how Descartes began the whole breakdown of modern philosophy. It's because of Descartes we have modern philosophy. So again, he saw the universe or reality, the scope of existence, as broken down between two components. He specifically broke it down between body and mind. Now, he's a very religious individual. He's putting soul as a part of body. So that explains, just so you're clear, that's why he says the world's divided into body and mind. He's not alienating religion. Okay. Likewise, okay, that's duality. On the flip side, you have something called monism. This means there's only one ruling or one controlling principle throughout the universe, throughout reality. Okay, so in this case, notice I have them in gold. There's more than one type of monism. And this is where it can get slightly confusing. I admit that freely. But there are types of monism. Okay, just like there are types of duality, there are types of monism. Okay, and basically the way they're broken down, you have materialism, which is also called physicalism. I prefer the word materialism. That word will pop up more than once in the next few weeks. So materialism, which views matter is greater than mind, or body is greater than mind. Okay. And you also have idealism, which will also come up across many times, especially when we get to Plato. In those terms, mind is greater than matter. So again, this is a mono system, one thing in control. So materialism means matter is controlling everything. Idealism, the mind is controlling everything. Or you have a simple basic monism, let's say, where you have a third substance that's greater than mind or body, this unknown, unnamed substance. Okay? So just to spin this yet another way, you have a religious monism and atheistic monism. I have it down here in smaller letters. These fit in with the monism, the basic concept. So if you're saying religious monism, the unnamed third substance is God, the one, O-N-E, okay, the essence of the universe, the soul of the universe. Okay. If you're atheistic, on the other hand, and we'll bump into this in a few weeks, there you would say nothingness, the third substance is nothing, is over matter and mind. Okay, that one little element, the modernists, way up in the 1900s, that will be a focus point in when we get to that era. Okay, probably next semester. Okay, so again, religious monism, basically from the title, you got it right away. God is controlling everything. God made everything. God is the one. Okay. Atheistic, there is nothing. It just happened. So nothingness, nihilism. Okay. Okay, so that's those, that will show you this main constructive philosophy. Okay, this is like a cornerstone, one of many cornerstones that Western civilization has built as a foundation of philosophy. Okay. Now we also have something called free will and determinism. Okay, so notice there's three components here: free will versus determinism versus fatalism. Again, if this gets confusing, let me know. In a few seconds, I might even pause this to take a short break so you can relax. Breathe deep. Take it easy. Originally, I was going to do this on a Friday, but I decided I'd rather do it on a Thursday. So Friday, our brains will be settled. Okay. The whole notion of why I'm going over this. Free will is a major factor when you are analyzing your characters. Psychoanalysis or not, you will be analyzing these characters. That's how you develop the lens in your observations. Okay? So, again, one major question you need to ask yourself is, is the protagonist presented to you as a component of, or as an example of free will, or are they a example of somebody who believes strongly in determinism or fatalism? Okay, take a deep breath. The notion of free will in itself, it is a belief that every individual is freely making choices without any outside control. You are in control of the environment you live in. You are in control of your body. You make your choices and you pay the consequences accordingly. Okay? So again, in creative writing, your characters will be using one or the other, free will or determinism. Your papers will start the debate, taking this into consideration. So in terms of your novels, the summer reading projects, look at your main character, contemplate whether they are acting solely on their own freedom of choice, or is it a formulaic fate controlling their actions? Okay, so I've got here 10 quick points to take away from this conversation. I've already hinted at this. Western civilization, just like the dualism and the monism, Western civilization has discussed and argued over free will for hundreds and hundreds of years. The logic of the universe is perhaps unanswerable. As humans, we probably will never have an answer for this. So that's another cornerstone of philosophy. There are no answers. You're just debating for the sake of clarifying and strengthening your debate skills. It's one way of looking at it. So the primary questions you're asking yourself: is humanity given the choice of free will in a universe that's solely based on free will? Or is humanity given the choice of free will in a universe that is based on deterministic qualities? Okay, so then that second comment I just said, I'm basically putting forth, if God exists, okay, that means the universe is deterministic. Things serve a purpose, follow a fate due to God's existence. Okay, Catholics, the whole Christian notion is that God gave us free will, and then we have to abide by our choices in life. In the when it comes to the final days, heaven or hell. Okay. So those two components, that's one. Two, is humanity actually constrained by laws of a deterministic universe? And this whole time we're struggling to get free of the said determinism. Now the Greeks loved that secondary statement I just made. The basis of their plays is all along that wavelength. Oedipus Rex is all along that wavelength. He's fighting fate throughout that whole play. And in the end, he discovered, as much as he tried to resist all the hurdles, let's call them hurdles, every little point that he thought he was escaping fate, he actually was following through with it. Okay. So for the ancient Greeks, basically, you cannot escape your fate. You end up doing what fate says you'll do, as much as you think you have free will. Okay. So item 3. These types of questions tread into territories of the sciences. So some sciences develop these type of questions, like quantum theory delves into this logic. Okay. So philosophy and religion delve into this logic. So we're going into a higher thinking academics here. When we get to the Epic of Gilgamesh, their view of the divine world is that the divine immortals control everything over humans. Fate is strongly in place. The gods are not serving humans. Humans are serving gods. Okay. The gods are shown as selfish, demanding creatures. Very petty creatures. Okay. On one moment they might do something nice to humans, but then it'll flip aside, and it's only because they expected something in return. Okay. So the literature that comes out of this, like the Epic of Gilgamesh, humanity has to learn. Oftentimes, these protagonists have to learn their placement in life, their placement in this strange universe that's at any moment an earthquake could wreck the entire civilization. And the earthquake would have been sent by the gods. Okay. A sense of self-independence, a separation from the divine world, let's say, developed around Plato and Aristotle and Sophocles. They started, Socrates really started the whole thing, but you've got these questions being asked about the placement of humanity in the divine world. Socrates was asking, he wanted proof that the gods were controlling aspects of humanity. That's a good way of putting it. He wanted proof that gods were, he wasn't necessarily atheistic, but he wanted you to question your faith and not just believe faith because you're told to, but because you understood it. Okay. So there's a fine line there. Don't confuse them with being atheistic. Okay. And it also comes down to the fact these three, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, are looking at base desires, self-control, virtues. So we'll talk more about virtues in a few days. Okay. They're looking to what makes people happy and how are we going to make people happy? And it's through virtues. Okay, so we'll get into that much later. Item 6, we'll get into that later as well. When we talk about Aristotle, he structured the golden mean. So we'll talk about that later. It's setting aside a logic for happiness. Likewise, we'll later get into some Christian views of St. Augustine and some of the Stoic philosophies. Okay. So I'm going to read item 9 verbatim here. When building an analysis of your readings, it is important to further examine these rhetorical issues and debates in terms of the characterization of the protagonist and antagonist. In this fashion, a better grasp better grasp on plausible themes are uncovered. So again, keep it in mind the novels you read over the summer. Is the main character, has he established, or she, a sense of free will in a deterministic universe, or is he fighting, or is she fighting that deterministic universe? Or are they accepting of that deterministic universe? The answers to those questions you answer on the basis of your observations. In some cases, there are wrong answers to those questions. So if you're uncomfortable or uncertain about your answer, talk to me. Let me know your train of thought and I can say yes or no. Okay. So I'm going to read number 10 as well. Likewise, what results is a greater understanding of the author's intentions with the plot and final message of the novel overall. All writers operate with an agenda of some fashion, specifically within the readings for this course. Be sure to make notations and annotations. I can't emphasize that enough, so I'm going to repeat that. Be sure to make annotations and notations within the text, defending or suggesting the philosophies of the characters and how their actions reflect back on the author. Are such reactions example of what is good about society, or are these situations dealing what is wrong in society? The readings for this class are not going to be easy. They're asking complicated questions along this lines. How can we keep society happy? How can society be functional? What do we need to do? So on one level, remember when we talked about the didactic, okay? We're entering into the realms of didactic. Some of these stories, the fiction, the creative writing will be didactic. The philosophies are definitely didactic. Okay. So to wrap this up, I've broken down some components of free will, determinism, and fatalism. Now, these are colored this way for a reason. Free will is the opposite of both determinism and fatalism. So determinism and fatalism are slightly similar, but they are separate components. Keep that in mind, okay? So between these three, I want you to go over this chart and investigate it closely, make sure you understand it. But these are three understandings, three main basic understandings of these three components. So for instance, under free will, the second to the last, it says individuals control their future. Our actions are not questioned or not valued by an outside source. They are what they are. So you can be religious and say God is ultimately forgiving of anything, no matter what it is. God will forgive you and you're allowed to your reward in the afterlife. Okay? So it's not necessarily an atheistic comment. Okay. Under determinism, individuals can affect their future. Now notice the verbiage. Over here under free will, individuals are controlling their future. Under determinism, individuals can affect their future. So the choices you make result in a bad situation or a good situation. Okay. And then under fatalism, individuals cannot affect their future. That's where predestination comes in. That's where Puritanism comes in. And in their view, there's this giant book, and God's already said who's going to heaven, who's going to hell. No matter what you do on earth, doesn't matter. He's got the list. Okay? So of the three, fatalism is the most conservative. Free will, the title says it, it's the most liberal. Okay? So soak that in. We'll be talking more about this, but these qualities of the last two PDFs are important evaluating tools in looking over your summer project reading. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. Stay safe out there.